What's up YouTube, Steve from 8-Bit Panda here, and today we're going to be taking a look at installing VMware vCenter Server. So what is VMware's vCenter? Basically, it's a tool that allows you to manage multiple ESXi hosts and multiple virtual machines through one interface. It also adds additional functionality such as high availability, distributed resource scheduling, vMotion, and virtual distributed switches. All of these features and many more are provided dependent on what license you currently hold. First thing that we need to do is download the VMware vCenter Server Appliance ISO from the VMware website. If you go to vmware.com, you can easily find the download on the website. The link is in the description below. Once you've downloaded that ISO and saved it to your desktop, if you double click on it, it should mount it and open it up. Before we run the VCSA setup, we need to install some plugins in order to make that work properly. So if you go into the VCSA folder, double click the client integration plugin and install that first. Alright, the install is now beginning. If we click next, all the way through, accept the license agreement, change the directory if you wish, click next and install. And we'll just leave that to finish installing. Okay, our install's finished. Now what we need to do is go back to the CD and click VCSA setup. So launch a web browser which will go through an automated installation procedure. The first step, it will try to pick up whether you've installed the plugin that we just installed. When you get asked if you want to run it, click allow. So it's now detected the plugin. We're going to click install. Accept the terms and click next. In here we need to enter all the details that we want for our vCenter server. The first thing is our target server, so the ESXi host that we're going to install this onto. My host is 192.168.199.11. The username is root and my password. This will validate to make sure that it can connect to that host. It's now connected to the host and it gives us a certificate warning. We just need to click yes to accept that, as long as the thumbprint is the same as what our host has. Now that we've connected to our target host, we can name our vCenter server. This will be the name that shows up in ESXi, and it will also be the name that shows up when you log on to the server. I'm going to call mine lab-vco1, and then we need to set a password. This is the password for the root account of the server. You won't use this ongoing. Click next. In VMware version 6, you've now got the option to choose two different deployments for your vCenter server. You've got Embedded Platform Services Controller or an External Platform Services Controller. The Platform Services Controller looks after things such as single sign-on, licensing and certificate management. If you embed it onto the same VM, then you don't need an external one. However, the server won't be able to handle as much load. For this example in this lab, I'm just going to keep it into one virtual machine just for ease. But if you've got a big platform with quite a lot of VMs on, I would recommend that you split the two out as shown below here. So we're going to click next, and then we need to create our SSO. So we'll click create a new SSO. We'll enter an SSO password. It's recommended that this password is different from the one we typed earlier on. Enter a domain name, so I'm just going to use the default vsphere.local, and the site name I'm just going to call it default site. Click next. Now we've set up our single sign-on, we can choose the size that we want the appliance to be. The size is determined by how many virtual machines and how many hosts you've got in your environment. Select the option that fits best for you. I'm going to choose tiny because this is only a lab. Now we can choose our main data store that all of our appliance will be stored on. I'm going to choose iSCSI1 and click next. If you want to choose thin provisioning, you can tick enable thin disk mode, and that'll deploy the server with thin disk. There's two different types of database that you can use now within the virtual appliance. You can either use an Oracle database or the embedded vPostgres database. It's up to you which one you choose. However, at some point in the future, VMware are going to remove the Oracle database support from the appliance, so when you upgrade, you would have to move on to the Postgres database. We now need to choose our network settings. I'm going to choose infrastructure, IPv4 with a static address, and now I'm going to type in my network address. Now I've typed in the network address, which is our IP address, also system name if you have one, or the IP address again, the subnet mask, your default gateway, any DNS servers. Once you've entered your DNS, you can then choose a time server. You will need to choose one of the options. Whichever one you choose, you do need to fill out the field as below. I'm just going to synchronize it with the ESXi host at this moment in time. I'm not going to enable SSH, and I'm going to click next. Now we've got a pop-up warning us because we've used an IP address instead of a fully qualified domain name, and it's recommended that we use a fully qualified domain name. As this is only a lab, I'm not bothered about that, but in a production environment, please make sure you use a fully qualified domain name. At the end of the wizard, you should now see the ready to complete, and it'll give you an overview of everything that you've configured so far. Check that everything's correct and then click finish. Now you can see the wizard's going through, it's downloading all the required components, and it'll start to deploy the appliance onto our ESXi host. If I log on to our ESXi host, we'll be able to see the processes running. I've gone onto our host, and you can see here the processes that are running at the moment in order to deploy the vCenter appliance. It's changed the appliance so that it can auto power on, and now it's deploying the OVF to our vCenter server and onto our data store. We're just going to let this finish and we'll be back shortly. Alright then, so our installation is now complete and we can now access our vCenter server by visiting the IP address in our web browser. So the administrator account is our SSO account that we created earlier on. I've now logged into the web client of the vCenter server. Doing this allows me to access all of the features that are available, and we'll go through a few of those now. As you can see, all the options along the top here are pretty much the same as what you see on your ESX host. Got a couple of new ones, vRealize Orchestrator and Content Libraries, which we'll go through on another video. On our monitoring, we can see what's happening in the tasks. We can look at the events. We have vCenter Operations Manager. We have VM storage policies. We've got Customization Specification Manager. This allows us to apply guest customization and also hardware changes. Host profiles. These are templates for our VM hosts. Roles for our security and permissions. System configuration. These are advanced system configurations, and then licensing as well. Now that we've gone to hosts and clusters, you can see that only our vCenter server is listed. None of our hosts have been added to this server yet. We need to do that, but that'll be covered in our next video. In the next video, we'll go through creating a data center, creating clusters and what clusters are. We'll be adding our hosts and also showing some of the features that a vCenter server gives to us. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, please hit that like button. Also, if you could subscribe, it really helps me out a lot. Check out